I'm loving this new intro music. Took me a little while to find it, but I tell you what, every time I hear it, man, I'm ready to go. Let's listen to some more. Yeah, okay. Well, everybody, welcome to Financial Fitness. I am your host, Donald Raymond. I am very excited to be launching this podcast. I've recorded, I don't know, a dozen episodes. I haven't released or launched any of them yet in preparation for this. This is a long time coming, a lot longer even than just the 12 episodes that I've recorded. This has been, honestly, if I could look back now with the glasses that I have on, this is hindsight being 2020, a lifelong journey. I had no idea, I had no ambition, when I was a kid to come on and do a podcast. Obviously, I'm a product of the baby boomer generation, so I'm one of those kind of in-betweeners, if you will. I come from a baby boomer mom and dad generation, and I was born in 79, which puts me, I believe, between like a Gen Xer and a Gen Y, so who knows, right? All I know is I've got the experiences that I've had, and those experiences have led me to where I am today, which is an extremely exciting, humble place to be, a place of humility for me, and I couldn't be any happier. It's coming through. I can tell I'm not really articulating this very well. I'm excited. I'm motivated, I'm driven, I'm ready to go. I want to help as many people as possible, and that's why I'm launching the Financial Fitness Podcast. I've got some ideas for some other possible podcasts if I can manage all the the activity between the multiple streams that I want to do. I don't know if I'll go to a video platform at any point. I am a financial coach, certified from Ramsey Solutions, and I do facilitate lots of virtual trainings, both individual and group, and both for personal use as well as small business. I'm a huge advocate of small business. I own and operate my own small business. I've done that a couple of times, as I'll talk about on this channel or on this podcast. And over the years, had a couple of businesses and operate in a couple of different ways. But then I've worked in the other side, where I've worked for smaller companies, local, one location companies, family businesses. Started as family businesses, became a larger organization, but still, by definition, a small business. And I've worked for them. I have worked for large companies, hundreds of thousands of people working for these companies, global, and had responsibilities that were exclusive to a local single facility, as well as all of North America, and some facilities outside of our borders. So I've had a pretty interesting, pretty eclectic experience over the last. I was thinking about this the other day. I've had 20 years now of professional experience, and it's run the gamut. And sometimes I was focused in one area. Other times I had multiple balls, all being up in the air and having to juggle those. So I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to getting into this more. I'm using the podcast as a way to reach as many people as possible, expose all of you to anything that I can give you that would be of value. And so with that comes an ask. I want you guys to tell me what you're looking for. What do you want to hear in a podcast about? This one, I think, will be pretty focused on personal finances. I want to hang out there for a while, see how it goes, and get your feedback. I know there's a lot of people starting up or have already started up small businesses. Maybe you've experienced some success, some failure. Let's talk about that. Maybe there's an opportunity to combine that into this podcast, the content for this podcast, or maybe we need to branch out. Maybe I need to think about rolling out that next podcast. I've got some areas of interest that I thought about maybe doing some recordings for and launching another one on not so frequent of a basis. Maybe once a month I could come out with an episode on some of these other passions, if you will, interests. And if you guys agree that there's value there and there's interest, you'll let me know. I know you will. So that's the ask. I wanted to reach out. I've been doing financial coaching now for a while. I know it's a huge pain. I've heard it put a few different ways, but one of the easiest and simplest ways to understand, I think, did not come from me. This is something I heard, and I can't remember where I heard it, but it stuck with me, which is that in 2008, we had a real estate crisis, right? We had foreclosures that we've never seen before in history, the result of a whole bunch of bad decisions, and I'm not here to talk about the dynamics of that or the ethics or anything else, but we experienced a recession. And it was one of the probably biggest recessions, biggest financial impacts I've ever seen in my 42 years that I can relate to. Obviously, there's been things that have happened in the 80s. There were some financial crises. Even in the 90s, there were some small ones. But I wasn't an investor. I wasn't, I didn't have a family. I wasn't married yet. I was still going through grade school and high school and just making my way through college and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, and then starting my first jobs, which were not careers, but they were jobs. And I was not being fed good financial advice. I take that back. I was being fed financial advice, probably good for the source based on their experiences in life and on past experiences. And so if I apply that to what I believe and what I teach and what I employ and implement within my own home and our own family dynamic and my business, I believe these to be very sound, practical, current applications for how to manage money. And I think there's just so many ideas out there that we can get lost really in the weeds, that you start out with one strategy and you hear something or you talk to somebody and they think you should be doing something else. And before you know it, you've got 18 different strategies that you can't really even identify with, and you're making no progress, and you're feeling burned out and run down, maybe a little deflated, maybe a little discouraged. That's what this podcast is for. This is for encouragement. This is for anybody who is out there trying to find their way through the weeds, through all of this, junk. I'm not going to call it garbage, but it's information, right? It's sensory overload. It's data overload. How many different ways are there to make a budget? I would say infinite. Talk to any number of people. Everybody's going to have their own twist, their own version. And I teach a pretty stripped down, formal way to approach it. But the way any of you take that information back into your own homes and apply it is going to be unique. And so there is no right way. That's what I'm going to tell you. What's important is that you actually make the budget. So that I'm not going to get into a budget conversation, but that's where we're going to be in this podcast. That's what we're going to talk about. This is the content. And I'm really just here as a guide. I'm here as a coach. I'm here to motivate and inspire. And these are two words that have been with me for a long time. I've been in many different levels of leadership roles throughout the years. And I've been led by leaders in different levels of leadership. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I get the opportunity to interview any of these people along the way, I'm going to do it. I'm going to reach out to them. I haven't had any interviews yet. And I want to make sure that this is content you guys would be interested in. But there have been some very impactful leaders in my life. And as you can imagine, some of those are family members. You start out with a mom and a dad, and they're responsible for giving you an environment, a safe environment, and a structured environment to grow up in. And so I want to have that conversation, because finances for me as a kid was very, very different than when I started to become someone who was earning an income at a very young age. I think my first job, I wasn't even 15 yet. And obviously I did chores around the house. I got an allowance when I was younger. So I was very fortunate to have, loving, caring parents that wanted to make sure that I was receiving compensation for the work that I was doing, and a fair compensation, and I have my experience with that. I have my memories from that. I want to have that conversation with my folks now and talk about those things, because there's things I don't remember about the agreements. And there's things that I probably was not part of. I know that I would not have been part of the conversation that goes on behind closed doors, when the kids are at school or at extracurricular activities or in bed. The parents are up now. I know this because my wife and I sit up and we talk about these things, right? So the parents are up talking about, okay, how do we do this? What does a fair allowance look like? What do we need help with, and what's fair for a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old to do around the house? What kinds of expectations? What's fair compensation for that? How do we do this without spoiling the kids? How do we teach them good fiscal responsibility? Oh, by the way, we both have full-time jobs and we got to maintain the household, and there's 3 kids running around. So, this is going to be very, I hope, very practical, applicable. I hope that we're all going to kind of meet on common ground here where we can have this conversation about what makes sense for us in our lives today, right? And as I said before, we're not going to get hung up on how you do the budget. What's important is that you budget. And there's some key aspects to a budget, right? There's some philosophies that we're going to talk about that I believe and I'm going to promote as being very specific and applicable and important, high priority strategies when it comes to building a budget. But how you actually apply it in your home, what motivates you, what are you saving for? Is it a vacation? Is it a car? Is it a new home? Is it a home payoff? Is it a family trip? Is it a 50th anniversary? Right? That's all going to be different for everybody. So what motivates you is going to change. And that's good. That's where we want to be. That's where we need to live. We need to live in very practical places. I can't just, write down a strategy, give you all the answers, hand it over on a sheet of paper and say, here, go and execute this and it'll be perfect, right? Nobody can do that. But there's people out there trying to do that. And so while I'm not here to try to compete with them, and I'm not here to try to figure out who those people are and hopefully expose them and show that they're wrong. That is not what I'm doing. What I am trying to do is provide you with an alternative, provide you with a good, solid option, something that I can show you and tell you and I'll describe and we'll talk through that I've had success with. And as a financial coach, a personal financial coach, as well as a small business coach, career coach, and consultant, I can walk you through those scenarios from a position of both failures and successes. And we learn from the failures and we apply those learnings towards successes. And as long as that's your pattern, you're always going to succeed, right? We've all heard it. The only path to success is what? I hope you all just said failure, right? The only path to success is failure. So we have to fail our way to success. Anyway, I'm getting a little long-winded. I'm looking at my clock right now, and I'm headed toward 15 minutes. I wanted this to be an intro. These episodes are going to be anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes. I'm going to hold myself accountable to that. This one I'm going to cut short here. In just a few minutes, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to ask you guys for your feedback, your patience. I've never done this before. This is brand new. Like I said, I've recorded some episodes, but I'm pretty comfortable with my gear now, but I'm still learning. So bear with me. I'm going to try to do a good job. I'm going to try to keep these things at the frequency that I decide. And right now, I'll tell you, I'm kind of tossing up 2 things right now. It's either going to be once a week or once every 2 weeks. And that really is going to depend on how fast I want to move through topics, how many interviews I'm able to do, and how applicable the content is. There's going to be parts of the month as we go through and seasons as we go through where I want to make sure I touch on certain things. I don't want to overload and overwhelm. I also don't want there to be too much space between the topics that you aren't able to, maybe apply some concepts or go back and think about some things. And I get, I've got to also separate and compartmentalize in my brain when I'm doing these and laying out my notes, the difference between this podcast and an actual coaching session, because we do get into the weeds during a coaching session. And so that's going to be my kind of final resting place for this intro, is that while I am doing the podcast and that's completely free to you guys, at some point I'll probably bring in, allow some advertisements into this podcast just so that I can keep it going and get a little bit of compensation for my time, just so that this is sustainable, because I don't want to ask you guys, although I will set up a Patreon page. If anybody wants to contribute, I humbly accept your contributions. I know better now than to not ask for that, because I know that those of you out there who will want to help support this channel. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I've had several people reach out to me already who know that I'm pursuing this goal, who know that I am looking at presenting this information and publishing this or going live with this podcast. They have encouraged me and let me know that once I'm live, they really want to help support. Several of them actually have already contributed and allowed me to buy the gear that I needed in order to launch this and launch it well. So I will be setting up a Patreon page. There'll be links in the description. And, thank you for your support. If you're just listening, that's great. If you want to support monetarily, that's great. If you want to give me a high five, a like, a shout out, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff is fantastic. I appreciate it all. And from the bottom of my heart. And I'm rushing now because I'm getting toward, now I'm looking at my clock and I'm seeing the numbers tick up. I'm getting toward 20 minutes and I don't want to go beyond 20 minutes because I don't want to lose anybody. And I know just from consuming podcasts kind of what my threshold is for being able to focus on the content. And so I just want to say thank you ahead of time. This is a proactive thank you, and I'll continue to say thank you in different ways. I'm going to look for ways to offer added value throughout the life of this podcast as it changes and evolves and kind of grows and moves with the audience. I'm going to look for your feedback because I want to be able to provide that value to you and not just tell you what I think you should know, but actually respond to your questions, respond to your needs, and keep this thing really practical, really personal, and vulnerable. And I'm going to share some personal stories as well along the way. Like I said, I'm going to interview some family, I'm going to interview some friends, past leaders, and I'm going to try to get my wife on this. And she and I, we've all had challenges, and our family's no different. We're not immune to those challenges, and we've experienced some things that I'm sure many of you guys have. Probably not to the extent that some of you have. So, our stories, while they share some very, very good and very personal and really extreme scenarios, probably are not as bad as what some of you have had to go through. And so I want us to be able to share those things. And whether you reach out and you allow me to interview you, or you just write me an email, leave me a note in the comments. I'm gonna do my best to keep up with all that. And that's kind of where the frequency of the podcast will sort of dictate how much time I have to continue coaching, being a family man, living our lives, and keeping this podcast current, so that I don't let any of you down. I don't want to make a promise that I can't deliver on. So my goal here would be to underpromise and overdeliver, not the other way around. So I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to figure out what the right frequency is. You guys will provide feedback, and we'll just kind of grow this thing organically. So thank you for your grace, for your patience, for your support. Get out there and I've already asked you, but give me some feedback. I can't wait to hear from you guys. I'm going to start launching episodes now regularly as soon as this one's out, but I'll probably drop the next one, first episode pre-recorded, and in a week, and then I'll see what kind of response I get, right? And then maybe the next week or maybe 2 weeks, and kind of see how that goes through the next couple of months, through the rest of this year, and we'll go from there. But anyway, thank you guys. Super excited. Thanks, everybody, for listening to episode 1. I apologize in advance, or I guess now retroactively, for a little bit of the chaotic pace through that episode. I did go back and do a little bit of cleanup, but I didn't want it to be super polished. I wanted you guys to hear straight from me. I noticed a couple little key notes that I jumped a little bit too far past my notes in front of me, and I got a little bit off track, but I will go back and I'll fill those in on later episodes. But anyway, thanks. I can't wait to hear from you. This is honestly this is end of road for me. This is what I expect to be doing for the rest of my life. Hosting this podcast or a version of it, interacting with you guys, being a financial coach, teaching new financial coaches, and really just going forward into hopefully a better life for me, my family, and all of you as well. So I look forward to it. God bless you, and let's go.